The night the monitors screamed, I was the only one who smelled metal in the air. Not blood, not panic. Metal wrong and cold. The kind of tang you never forget once a professor makes you sniff beakers for a living. 20 doctors circled Elliot Quinn like planets around the sun, while I, the woman in the gray uniform everyone looks through, stood with my cart and knew something about this picture was off. You know what I mean? When three separate problems start moving like one animal and nobody in charge wants to admit it. I keep floors shining at Harbor Heights Medical in Northwood, but that's not the whole story. I used to chase a chemistry degree before life rerouted me, and the language never left, it just went quiet while I pushed a mop. That night it got loud again. Elliot's nails had that faint yellow tint that isn't jaundice. His hairline was thinning in a pattern that screams from old notes. The nurse rattled a list that sounded scattered. Nausea, neuropathy, cloudy thoughts. Separate fires, unless you speak pattern. Dr. Barrett Langford cruised in with his silver watch and country club voice, didn't look at me, just the hallway, and said, "Housekeeping needs to clear by 2, we're consulting." Yeah, that happened. I did my job, emptying bins, wiping marble. And I also did the other thing all invisible people do. When nobody bothers to hush in front of them, I listened. The visitor scanner beeped for a Navy suit I knew from business headlines. Rowan Kincaid, Elliot's rival, turned helpful friend, the kind of helpful that leaves fingerprints on outcomes. He held up a matte black jar like a product launch, brought the balm. "Elliot's favorite," he said to the room, then to Nurse Jules. "Make sure he uses it. It's the only thing that calms his skin." Jules didn't blink. "We're focused on his liver today." He opened it anyway, dabbed it on his own hand to demonstrate, set it front and center on the nightstand like a stage prop. Small thing easy to miss unless you've learned to see what moves when nobody thinks you're looking. I cleaned the bathroom longer than necessary, straightening towels that were already straight, letting the clues line up. A metallic smell. Ascending neuropathy that climbs from toes to tongue. GI distress that won't behave. Hair thinning just so. Nails whispering yellow. A balm pushed into the center of the story again and again. The word formed before I let myself own it. Thallium. Old school quiet as a rumor, colorless, nearly tasteless, slips through skin hides inside diagnoses that sound smart. You don't find thallium unless you go looking for thallium, and nobody had. I took my shot with someone who still had kindness left after residency. "Dr. Patel," I said softly in the hallway, "please test Mr. Quinn specifically for thallium. The pattern it's textbook." She was respectful, surprised, a little torn. "We ran heavy metals early," she said. "A broad panel isn't a target," I said, more direct than my job title allows. "If it's being microdosed through skin, blood can float under the cutoff. Hair or nails tell the story." She nodded, promised to bring it up, checked her pager, ran. Security found me an hour later. "Ms. Carter, reports say you're interfering with medical decisions. Keep to your duties." Copy that. Back to my cart, back to being a piece of furniture. But the alarms got louder inside me, and when I clocked out and tucked my son into bed, I pulled an old notebook from a shoebox. Hand-drawn reaction charts, margin jokes from classmates I haven't seen in 10 years. Words like dithazone and Prussian blue that still taste like hope. I read just enough to sharpen the edges, closed the laptop, and made a plan that would either save a life or cost me a job. I came early the next night, waited for that skinny minute when rooms go quiet during shift change, swabbed the faintest sheen of balm into a sterile cup, then ducked into a maintenance closet with a dripping sink and a light that buzzed. No MacGyver, no movie magic, just a simple spot test that flags certain heavy metals. Not courtroom proof, not a diagnosis, just a flare shot into dark saying, "Hey, look here." The swab shifted color in a way that made my stomach drop. I took pictures. I took nothing else except what my job pays me to take. The trash. Tissues with neat little fingerprints of balm and empty product box. I checked the visitor log, didn't steal a page, just looked, and the pattern lined up like train tracks. Rowan visits balm, appears symptoms climb by nightfall. That afternoon, Dr. Langford called an all-hands conference in 1701, suits and specialists and someone from the board, everyone talking like money could bully biology. I knew if I waited for an invitation, Elliot would run out of time while people debated my place in the room. So I knocked once, rolled in with my cart like a shield, and said what I had to say. "I'm sorry, but if I don't speak, I won't sleep. Mr. Quinn is being poisoned. You're treating thallium symptoms while the source sits on his nightstand in a black jar." The temperature in that room dropped 10 degrees. Somebody muttered, "Who let housekeeping into consult?" Dr. Langford put on his smile that says problems are being handled elsewhere. "Ms. Carter, we appreciate your diligence. This is a clinical discussion." Then clinically, I said, "Steady for once, look at his nails and hairline, and listen to the neuropathy climbing upward. You didn't rule out thallium, you waved at it from a distance. You need a targeted test, and if I'm right, you need Prussian blue now. Pull the balm, the delivery is skin microdose over weeks. And call security because Mr. Kincaid demonstrates it on Elliot's skin to prove it's harmless. Prussian blue has risks," he said, cool as marble. "So does dying," I said, and heard a collective inhale like I'd broken glass. Dr. Patel cut through the theater. "Draw for thallium blood and hair and bag the balm for tox. Now." Nurses moved like they had been waiting for someone to give them permission to save a life. Security sealed the jar. 20 minutes later, a lab tech jogged in breathless printout in hand. Elevated thallium significant. The room flipped from debate to action. Orders changed, pharmacy moved, monitors shifted course like a ship finally finding the channel. Federal agents, Morales and Chen, arrived, reviewed security footage, watched Rowan uncapped the jar, when alone watched him rub balm into Elliot's wrist with that too casual touch. They stepped out to chase their thread, and I stayed with mine, the steady hum of machines finally sounding less like a countdown and more like a metronome. Around dusk, Elliot woke, eyes glassy, then sharp voice scraping its way back. "What happened?" Dr. Langford stood at his shoulder and made a choice you could see cost him something. "You were being poisoned, Mr. Quinn." Ms. Carter recognized what we missed. Her observation pushed the test that changed your care. Elliot turned his head toward me, and for a second I almost stepped back because I'm not built for spotlights. "Thank you," he said, quieter than a whisper, and louder than every dismissal I ever swallowed. "I don't know you, but thank you." The air moved different after that. Not a parade. Hospitals don't do confetti, but nods in hallways that used to be blind, small courtesies where there used to be elbows. Admin called me upstairs, slid a commendation across polished wood, granted paid leave while I assisted with process review, which is corporate, for we need to rethink who gets to speak in the room. 2 weeks later, in an office that looked like a spaceship, Elliot handed me a folder that made my knees weak. Scholarship living stipend, part-time placement in talks once I re-enrolled. "I read about your past," he said. "I want your mind where it belongs, not trapped between a mop and a miracle." I didn't say yes on the spot. Single moms don't jump without checking the net. But I said yes. Now my mornings smell like ethanol again, not bleach, and Meena Patel, Meena now, slides tough cases my way with a grin that says, "Go on, then prove me right." People ask if I broke protocol. Maybe. They ask if I risked too much. Maybe that too. But here's what I know, and tell me if you've lived this, you know what I mean. When a system is more afraid of being embarrassed than being wrong, someone outside the circle has to knock clear their throat and tell the truth. Was it comfortable to run a spot test in a closet or interrupt a conference with a gray uniform and a shaking voice? No. Was a man alive to say thank you because of it? He was. Rowan has his court dates. I have my classes, and the next time a jar gets set down in the wrong place, I hope someone like me is on the floor listening. So tell me, was I right to break rank, or do you think I crossed a line, and do you trust a system that ignores the hands that clean its rooms, to also hear the minds attached to those hands? Drop your take in the comments, argue with me. Tell me your story of being overlooked or speaking up. And if you want more real human stories about invisible people becoming undeniable, hit subscribe and bring a friend who needs to hear this.